Have you ever thought to yourself, I'm not sure I'm ever going to like this kid? I'm not talking about your own kids, I'm talking about stepkids. In this video, we're going to talk about, oh, I don't know, like how much time do you have to spend with this kid? And and you know, what choices do you need to make? So stick around. We're going to cover those. We're going to tell you how to traverse that, how to make it through, and realize that you're on it.
Hi, everybody. We're Mike and Brenda Baker, and today we're talking about who said you had to like your stepkids.
So, blended families. We all have, well, it happened within our family. So for those of you that are new, we have 5 sons and we have 11 grandkids total. So 2 of our sons don't talk to us anymore, and we have a really good relationship with the other 3. So with that, we're not going to go into all that other noise. We're going to talk about stepkids specifically. Did we have a child? Did you, in our relationship, have a stepchild you didn't like?
Absolutely.
Yes. So we're gonna hit a few points, but first I would like Brenda to speak on the one she didn't like. What's the story there?
Okay, well, what you need to understand is that when Mike and I got together, his 2 children were 4 and 3, and mine was 2. So they were very young. And I'm an only child. And so, to a certain degree, I didn't really know what to do with a child or children. So that was a huge learning curve. But one of his children was super annoying. He would cry every time. He was the biggest drama guy. There were just a lot of things about him that just drove me insane. And so I, at first, really struggled with him. I didn't want to be around that kid unless Mike was around. And not that Mike would leave his 2 boys with me
No.
very often, but every once in a while he did. And that was a struggle. And I found myself being like, okay, what am I going to do here? Because I don't know if this child and I are ever going to be close. And then one day I remember we were talking about how he just took my son in as his own. It was like, and to a certain degree, I was very jealous of Mike because I didn't feel like I knew how to do that. So I remember we had a conversation where it was like, well, how did you do that? I mean, this is easy for you. And Mike was like, it's not easy, it's a choice. And honestly, from that day on, I started realizing that I had a choice to make. And I had to make that choice every single day sometimes. And without going into some of the ugly that happened, he was usually the one that would run home and tell mommy all the half-truths and all of the things that, happen at our house, which
Yes.
a lot of those things ended us up in court. They ended us up with huge conversations and disagreements with his ex-wife. But we weren't actually doing anything wrong. We never abused him or his brother or any of the children in our house, but yet we had a lot of problems. And so, like I said, I had to make the decision every single day that I would love this child as if he was my own. The other one I didn't struggle with because the other one was very much like Mike. And so I knew how to relate to him. I knew, the other one was just upset that Mike and I were together, basically. I mean, he hated me because I was with Mike and not his mom.
Well, look, one thing I will say is it doesn't help when the bio mom is calling the stepmom step monster. I know that our relationship is not the only one that's happened in.
Yeah.
So, so we're not here to talk about her though. Okay, not you per se, but my ex. I just wanted you guys to see that it happens. Okay. Now that kid has since decided not to talk to us, and who did he blame when he decided not to talk to us? Well, nobody. He just stopped talking to us. He just. I think Brenda believes that he blames her, but
That's what he said.
but we didn't say it to me.
No, not to you,
And
but to
but the
everyone
point
else.
but the point here is that he left because he wanted to leave. You know, we all have normal choices and we all have normal commitments. And then we have some not so normal choices and some not so normal commitments, which brings us into our first point. The first point is, how much time are you obligated to spend with a child that you don't like? Okay. I mean, it happens. Now, we're going to get into the like and love part here in a minute, but how much time are you obligated to spend with a child you don't like? Typically, I would say, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, if you don't like a child, you don't trust that child either.
Right.
So a couple of things you got to watch out for is you are going to be obligated to watch that kid probably at some point. So you need to be very aware of your surroundings. Try not to spend a lot of alone time with the kid if you don't trust him. If you do have to spend alone time with the kid, make sure that that kid is probably almost always within sight or doing something that can be easily regulated by you. Uh, don't give too many choices. Don't give too many options. Don't give too many chances because they're going to test your envelope.
Yeah.
So, am I saying that there are some just inherently evil children? No, I am saying that there are a lot of children with some inherently evil training. Okay? Which means that it's not necessarily the child you don't like, it's the behavior.
Yeah.
Because really, kids know when you left the house at 18, you knew, whether you want to admit it or not, what your parents told you to know.
Yeah.
Or what the school system told you to know. Okay? These kids know what their parents tell them to know, whether the parent verbally says it or trains them in action. All right? Example. If you tell a kid no 10 times and never follow through on the punishment, you have just told your child that for at least 10 times I'm going to tell you no and you can continue to do what you're doing. And I'm going to do nothing about it. And then if you don't follow through at all, they know that they can continue to do what they're doing. You're not going to follow through anything. So you're communicating something not necessarily in word, part of it is in word, but mostly in action. And that's what I mean by that. So how much time do you have to spend with them? Maybe more than you like. We are the adults. They are the child. Just be very careful, be very aware, and I would say that's probably the biggest warning. Just be very aware. Usually it's a trust issue, not a like per se issue.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's because you don't like the child, because a lot of times the parent, the bio parent, is
That you don't
not,
live with.
yeah, well, even the one in the house is not holding that kid to the fire as far as discipline goes. They're letting them get away with things you don't like or you don't agree with. They're letting them go places you don't like or you don't agree with. They're letting them talk to you in manners that you don't like and you don't want to deal with. So keep those things in mind. What would you like to add to that?
So if you're the bio parent in the house, you have to step up with your kids. You have to make sure that they know that this is, your husband or wife, whichever it is for you, and that you're not going to take any, you're not going to let them treat your spouse badly. But you have to do something about that, like Mike was saying. Now with the younger kids, if that kid is, you just do not like them, honestly, if they're annoying and things, that's a parenting issue that you can actually somewhat fix. Be on the same page together. Now, yes, you will have to have some sort of a understanding that when the kids first come back from their other parent's house, you're going to have to give some grace. You're going to have to let them settle into the household. Because honestly, it took his two boys about a day and a half to really settle in and
Sync
really,
back up.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would really have to remind them a lot. The expectations had to be reminded. Like, there were things that we had to do, but I did learn really quickly that I had to give them grace. And as a new Christian, because I was a new Christian when we first got married, I didn't really understand grace to a certain degree, at least not the godly type of grace. And so I would definitely say that that is something that you really have to keep in your mind when dealing with stepkids that you don't like. But really, more than that, you really have to change your thinking.
Yeah, which brings us to point number 2, which is actually the story I had Brenda tell up front because I felt it was needed to give you guys some perspective. So point number 2 is, making the choice to love the stepkids. it's like with spouses, right?
Yeah.
You love me every day.
Yeah.
Have there been days you didn't like me much?
Absolutely.
Okay, it's the same here, all right? You heard her talking about Jeffrey, and look, he was a difficult kid, but he was the quiet kid, and you got to watch the quiet kids. So he was a quiet kid, although he was pretty whiny too,
And
and
sneaky.
and
Oof.
sneaky. And he would say things that just didn't need to be said. And it wasn't that we were provoking him, and it wasn't that we were prodding him and just making his life miserable. One of the things that he would constantly complain about was Brenda made him do his homework. And he would go home and just bellyache, and so it just caused nothing but problems. But Brenda made the choice not to let that stuff slide, but to make a place for Jeffrey in her heart.
Yeah.
Okay, because let's be honest, when you have problems with your kids in training, you can train their actions all day long, all up until they're 18, and then you wonder why they left the church. Well, they left the church because you didn't train their heart.
Yeah.
And training their heart means you got to train your own heart.
Oof.
Okay? So you have to make room. You don't have to like the kid, but you agreed to marry their parent.
Yeah.
All right? You said I do, and when you said I do, you said I will. Okay? And when you said I will, you by obligation said I will make a place for this child in my life and in my heart. I don't care if you're sitting there saying to yourself, I never said that, Mike. No, when you said I do, you did. And I would challenge anybody out there to point out in scripture where you did otherwise. Okay? You didn't just attach yourself to that spouse. You didn't just say this is my ride or die. You said you guys are my ride or die regardless. Now, with that, Brenda made a place in her heart for Jeffrey.
Yeah. And I still do.
Okay? And yeah, but as a result, Jeffrey left. I haven't talked to Jeffrey in over 15 years, maybe longer, probably at this point.
Yeah.
Do I love my son? Yeah. Am I proud of him? I don't know. I don't even know what he's doing. I'm not going to sit here and lie about it, okay? I'm not sure that if he knocked at my door, I would let him in the house right away. I would question why he was there and what his motives were. Does that mean I don't love my son? He's my son. I love my son. But this whole love is blind thing is baloney.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a movie line. That is not truth. So the point here is, well, let me back up. Cody, our third oldest, from her first marriage, right, he was a difficult child.
Yeah, he was very passionate.
And I made a place in my heart for him. And as a result, I adopted him.
Yeah.
And he is my son 110%, not any less than the others. I am very proud of him. He's a father, he's a husband, and he does, like the other boys do, the very best he can.
Yeah.
Okay? And when he has questions, he asks. And when he trips, we're there to help encourage him.
Yeah.
Okay? So you've got two difference, right? Yours with Jeffrey, and then mine. And with Jeffrey's, it didn't turn out well. But let me add one thing here, because this point is so important. I never let up on Jeffrey that we were a family.
Yep.
I never, ever told him that it was okay for him to act the way he did. I never endorsed his feelings. I cut those options out, because the thing we were trying to put together was family identity. And with my middle son, we turned that into a joyous event in his adoption. And it worked great. So we have two extremes. What did you want to say?
Two things. Number
Yeah.
one, it wasn't his feelings, but you wouldn't allow him to treat me in a bad way. Whether it be talking back to me or disobeying the rules or whatever it was, Mike was the one who got after him. Not that I never did, but mostly I just was like, oh yeah, I'm going to let your dad know, or whatever.
But that was me protecting my wife
Right.
as well.
Right.
Yes.
Second thing, another point that I really want you to understand is you came into this marriage with some bruises and some trauma and whatever else from your past, right? Well, I was dealing with those too. So to a certain degree, part of my not liking him was the fact that I had a lot of bruises that I hadn't gotten over yet. I hadn't healed. Sure, I'd been baptized, but all the things that have happened, you still have to work through those. And so I would take some of the things he would do personally when he's just a kid. But at the time, I didn't know that. I mean, yes, I knew he was a kid. But because I don't have siblings, there was a huge gap for me. Like what all of you probably already know, I had to learn. I didn't have any interactions with a sibling. If I got in a fight with a friend, I didn't, like, we weren't friends anymore.
Yeah.
I didn't ever have to deal with them at home. I never had to work things out with people. So being married in general has been a learning lesson for me, because I didn't know all the things. Now, so ask yourself this: am I projecting how I feel about things that have happened to me onto this child? Because I got to tell you, I was.
Yeah.
So just think about that, and when you feel yucky towards the kid, and think to yourself, why do I feel this way? Maybe they act like your ex-wife or husband. Like, that is a thing. This is all normal things that we have to go through so that we can remind ourselves, where we came from and where we want to go. Because I was actually able to fairly quickly turn it from I don't like this kid to I don't like that behavior. I was able to separate the two.
Yeah. So that brings us to our last point here. What if you never like them? What if you never like them? I've said this many times. Let me say it again here. At the end of the day, you are accountable to God. Not your husband. Well, we're all accountable to God. But what I'm talking about is you. Maybe you're the husband, maybe you're the wife. Okay? Now, yes, as one flesh, the Lord sees you as one. But you still have individual salvations to deal with. So he's accountable to God. You're accountable to God. What if you never liked the kid? Is that a sin? I think that's where a lot of parents start to feel am I in sin because I can't stand this kid? Am I in sin because I'm angry? Am I in sin because? What you need to remember is it's not about am I in sin, it's about where your heart's at.
Yeah.
For the Lord knows your motives. At the end of the day, can you look God in the face and say, Lord, I tried with this child today. I gave 110% with this child today. God didn't say you had to like him.
No.
Said it's a blessing whose quiver is full of them, right? But never said that you were going to like them every day. Never said every arrow was going to shoot straight. Never said that they all had all the feathers on the shaft. He just said the man whose quiver is full of them is blessed. Okay? And some days it's going to feel like that, and some days you're going to wonder what that blessing is. But overall, remember, what if you never like them has to do with your heart and how you react, how you account. Are you accountable? Do you apologize when you've done wrong? Or do you just roll your eyes and leave the room? Do you do what I see so many parents do? I have to go to my room for a minute and cool off. Okay, which is fine. If that's what you need to do, that's fine. So long as you come back out as the adult and make it right again.
Yeah.
You want to add something?
And I think that whether or not you ever like them is, like I said before, a choice, and it's a commitment that you made to your spouse that, well, and you really make it to God as well when you say, I do. And so, there will be a process. You will probably have to go through some things and start finding ways to like the kid. One of the things that I did is I tried to take a mental list of things that I liked about him that he would do in any given day. That really helped me to focus on the positive things he was doing because He had a lot of negative qualities, but he was really, really sweet in some ways. I remember one Christmas, he didn't have any money, but through a weird turn of events, he ended up going to a church sale thing where they could get everything for free. And he actually got me a really sweet Christmas present that year. And I'd never really seen that from him. He was a thoughtful person. And so there were a lot of things that I actually was able to appreciate him for. And that was like outside of my choice, that was the extra thing that happened that I was just able to just not forget about his negatives, but stop focusing on them. But the other thing that I did was I stopped worrying about what Mike's ex was doing, saying, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Because that kid loved to cause drama between the households.
Yep.
He would, on purpose, tell me things that his mom would say, whether I don't know if they were true, or just partially true or not, but he would try to get us fighting. Because if he could get us fighting, for some reason, that just gave him some sort of satisfaction. And I really think that we could have worked better together, potentially, if he hadn't have been allowed to do that, because we didn't allow it, but the other parent might, right? So just, check yourself. Try to remember that you don't have to have control, because sometimes, with stepkids, you don't have a lot of control. You have to just be thankful and move forward in the best way that you can on a daily basis.
So in closing, I want you to remember this. If you don't want a broken home and you don't want a broken marriage, refuse to settle for being a broken person. And I know a lot of you out there are thinking, but I am broken. Well, a lot of us are broken. But that does not mean that we have to fall prey to that brokenness. It means we carry it like adults and like the people that God expects us to be. You want that kid to see the glory of Christ, then show it to him and quit expecting him to see it at church.
So with that, we're going to see you again soon. We do have our Blended Family Momentum School group, and so we're going to talk more about this in there. So it's a free group, so go ahead. The link will be down below. And with that, we'll see you again soon. Bye.